Are you ready for a new career? Or maybe you just want a new job or a promotion. Basically, it's time to make some moves in your career, but your mind is full of limiting beliefs that tell you why it'll be hard, why it won't work, why you're too old, and on and on. Well, my guest today, Lorraine Rise of CareerUprising.com, has a lot of guidance for you as we bust up all kinds of thoughts that are holding you back in your work. Lorraine holds an MS in Human Management Resources, as well as certifications in HR, resume writing, and career coaching. She's helped over 300 clients in more than 30 industries, including some of the most recognizable firms in the country, like Microsoft, Amazon, Fannie Mae, Coca-Cola, IBM, and more. Her podcast, CareerUprising.com, is also totally fantastic. It is a go-to resource, and I hope that you'll take a listen to it. Now let's go see what Lorraine has to say about your career. Hi, I'm Summer McStravick with FlowDreaming.com, and welcome to this series, Scarcity Thinking Sucks, So Do Limiting Beliefs. So let's dissolve your limited thinking, dump those scarcity thoughts, own your power, and get you back on your feet, reaching for the stars. Over the course of these episodes, you'll hear from some really brilliant minds about ways they pinpoint and blow up limiting beliefs in their specific areas of expertise. So come with me on a journey into your mind and heart, and let's see what we can find in these very enlightening conversations. Hi, Lorraine. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me, Summer. I'm really excited.
Yeah, this is a beautiful time to have you also because you're going to help us explode these limiting beliefs we have about changing careers, being too old to change careers, not being able to rise higher in our own career, maybe looking for a job that's we think is too big for us, all kinds of stuff like that, right?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Perfect timing because everybody right now is going back into the career world and saying, I need to reinvent myself. So why
Yes.
don't we start with the first belief that I've encountered a lot in people, and we've talked about this. I'm too old to change things. I can't leave this now. I will be starting from scratch. How do you start with that very basic limitation that locks us into something that we hate? How do you get rid of that?
Yeah. So I work primarily with mid and late career professionals. So you really just hit the nail on the head. That is one of the biggest limiting beliefs I encounter. I hear, in fact, the biggest phrase I hear is, I think it's too late for me. Is it too late for me?
Yeah.
We have to really examine, where do these beliefs come from? I think that that is the first step to getting rid of it, is recognizing that this belief might not even be yours. You may have adopted it from somebody else. We hear other people say, oh, it's too hard to find work after 50 or anything like that. And it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy that if you start buying into something, suddenly you see proof of it everywhere, or you think that you see proof of it everywhere. So whenever I have a client who says something like that to me and they say, oh, I've seen age discrimination, I say, tell me how. What have you seen? What have you been experiencing? And why do you think that's because of your age? What makes you think that? We start peeling back the layers of this belief and finding out, do we really have proof of this? Or where did this come from? What makes you think that? And even if they feel like they have a barrier, barriers can be removed. Barriers can be overcome. I think it's important as a coach, for me, it's all in the questions that I ask, right? I'm
Hmm.
always looking to ask powerful questions to my clients. So even if we have a barrier, at some point we're going to have to come up with a plan to get past it. Because I will say to them, so perhaps ageism might be out there, but you still need a job. You still want to change careers.
Yeah.
It doesn't change your goal. So if it exists, okay, let's come up with a plan to move ahead anyway. Are you going to let it make you stop, make you quit? And of course, they don't want to do that, right? The bottom line is, we all have goals, and there's always a limit or a barrier of some kind out there, but we got to move through it, because we could make anything become a barrier. Time can be a barrier.
Mm.
Other people can be a barrier. There's so many potential for limiting beliefs that we could let anything trip us up. So you're either going to let anything trip you up and hold you back, or nothing. It's
Yeah.
one or the other.
Yeah.
Which do you
I
want?
you
Yeah.
know me, I'm a list maker. So already in my head, I'm going, God, I just want to write down every belief I have. So I'll tell you something, still a bit of a secret. I wrote a fiction book this year, like a paranormal kind of mystery. This is
Ooh.
not my thing at all, right? This would
Uh-huh.
be an entirely new career. I struggled with this. I actually struggled finding time for it because I
Yeah.
thought, why should I be doing this stupid, silly little thing that will go nowhere? I should be focusing on my flow. I should be doing. So I struggled to find time. I finally did. And then I struggle with the next thing, which is you can't reinvent yourself as a fiction writer out of nowhere at my age. And, you know, you know what I mean? Like I have
Yes.
experienced this very same thing,
Well,
and
it
I'm
is.
still
It's
saying I can't make any career out of it. Like, how do you tell
yes.
people, yes, you can?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, look at all the people that do make careers. And look, I tell people, look at
Uh-huh.
everything you've accomplished so far. Obviously, there
Hmm.
were some kind of barriers or limits in your way to get to where you are today. You moved
Yeah.
through them. You took action anyway and moved ahead. It's no different than what you want to do now. We've all
Hmm.
done challenging things or new things at some point, but we forget that, right? We get used to being where we're at and we get tunnel vision in the job that we're at, especially if you've been in it for 20 years.
Hmm.
Many of my clients have been in a job for 20 or 30 years, and it just feels scary. So then they start saying, well, I can't, or I'm
Yeah.
stuck. That is the
Yeah.
biggest one that I hear is I'm
Uh-huh.
stuck, I'm stuck, I'm stuck. And I always tell people stuck is a mindset. Stuck is never a truth. It is always a mindset. It is a choice.
Hmm.
And it's really just kind of code word for I don't know what to do next, or I haven't made a choice yet,
Right.
but you always have choices. So part of my work as a coach is to help them visualize. I do a lot of questions that get them visualizing their future
Yeah.
and asking them powerful questions. You know, what does your ideal workday look like? What would your career look like if you had no limits on it? What would you change if you could? There's so many questions that I can ask to get them
Yeah.
kind of fired up and visualizing what they do want. And I think
Yeah.
the other tool that I use too is focusing them on what they do know, because we
Hmm.
tend to focus on what we don't know. Well, I don't have this yet, or I don't have that certification, and I don't know how to do that. So I turn it around and I ask them, tell me what you do know about this career change. Tell me
Hmm.
what you do, even if it's just one thing. And let's grow. It's like a seed. Well, let's just grow it from there. But we start to focus on what we don't have or what we don't know. And then
Yeah.
that's all we see until we stop, take a step back, and say, you must know something that you
Hmm.
want or something that you don't want. Start with that and grow it from there. I think that is the most powerful thing is just to stop, change what you focus on to get different results. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Back to my list making. My list is full of lack thoughts. This won't works and I can't. And if I'm writing them out, I look at all of them and I realize I've been going forward, holding on to all of these. That's where the focus has been, as opposed to,
Hmm.
and I love how you're shifting this, the seed of I know how to write.
Yeah.
I know what kind of books I enjoy, or whatever it would be for anybody else, right?
Hmm.
What grow those pieces, shift the focus from what you can't do, can't have, can't be to I
What you
could
can
do
do.
this, and let's what happens.
Yes.
Let's see what happens if I start growing this and moving toward it and envisioning it.
Yes.
That's
Well,
beautiful.
I had a client just a couple of days ago that I was coaching that really had a lot of just negative limiting thoughts. Oh, recruiters are useless. If I do that, they won't get back to me or this or that. I had all these reasons why it wouldn't work. And I actually just stopped her. I said, I want you to give me one reason why this might work. I've heard all the reasons why it won't work. I want you to give me one reason why you might be successful. And she just kind of paused and stopped for a minute, not expecting me to ask her that. I said, you can see what the coaching that we need here is mindset coaching, right? It's not
Hmm.
your job search, even. I can help people have a beautiful resume and a great LinkedIn. That's all fine. That's what they come for. But then they realize what they actually need is that new mindset, that open-ended, unlimited possibilities kind of mindset. That that's what really is their biggest challenge is themselves and realizing all the times throughout a day that they say no to themselves. No, I shouldn't apply for that because they won't call me back, or I don't meet this one credential, so I'm
Yeah, I'm
not going
not
to apply for it.
qualified.
I'm not qualified, right?
Yeah.
So I'm done. And it's almost like we're giving ourselves an out so we still feel safe, right? So
Yeah.
because if we don't do it, then we won't get hurt. But we actually are far more afraid sometimes of being successful than of failing. It's interesting how that works. And it all comes down to limiting beliefs. It really does. But people aren't aware that they have so many negative limiting beliefs. So I believe coaching is the answer to that, because you have this other impartial person who's kind of holding a mirror up to you and to all your thoughts and beliefs and showing you this is what you're saying. And if we really believed all those things, why would we even try? If you
Yeah.
don't believe something is possible, you're not going to do it. But I tell clients, by the very fact that you're coaching with me and you've made this investment in time and money, tells me there's a part of you that thinks it's possible, or you wouldn't be going through this process. We just have
Yeah.
to dig it out. It's deep down.
Yeah, and that bit about being safe, I really hear that because
Yeah.
especially if you've been doing something for 20 or 30 years, you start to feel like nobody will want me for anything else. I can't, especially if you're jumping from one area to something completely different. Let's say you've been
Yes.
managing grocery stores for 20 years and now you want to start your own home decorating company. You
Yes.
think, oh, who's going to want me? No one will hire me for that or work for another home decorating company.
Yes.
Feels like, how do you help that person just completely say yes and embrace that? And what happens when they experience some of those rejections? Because I assume, like, realistically, they probably
Yes.
will. What do you do then to keep
Absolutely.
them going?
I think we have to break success down into small increments and just, we have a tendency to look at the whole staircase and get very overwhelmed and stop ourselves. I think we need to break it down into micro goals and just start with one thing at a time. And if you achieve that, you're a success. So, for you, just writing that new book is the success. Even if you don't do anything with it yet, no matter what happens, just writing it is the first goal. You can figure out what to do with it later. But if you put too much pressure on yourself and say, well, I'm only going to write it if it's going to be a bestseller and it's going to be, then I got to go out on book tour and do all this stuff, you stop. It's just, you're going to shut down. It's too much
Yeah.
to think about. Break it into a small goal and start with one thing and take action on that one thing. Because the more action you take, even if it's incremental, the more courage you get. We don't typically have the courage to do something huge all at once and then get started. The courage comes later, but you have to get started in small bits. So I would say break your goal down into something smaller and measure your success along the way, not the entire outcome, not the entire thing. When I started my coaching practice, I didn't know where it was going to go. I didn't know if I was going to be successful. I didn't know if it was going to fail and I'd have to go back and get another job. I didn't know any of that, but I had to be willing to get started and measure my success small ways along the way. Otherwise, I just never would have started. So
Yeah.
it's just, I would say break it down, set
Yeah.
small goals and feel that success and celebrate that success and don't always attach an outcome to it right
Hmm.
away. I have a client that I'm coaching now who's overcoming a lot of just lack of self-love from a lot of trauma in her childhood, and it takes a lot of courage for her to even apply for a job. So I tell her, I want you to just apply, just to apply. We don't care if they call you back. We don't care what happens. It's not about that. It's about just taking that one simple action, and then you're done, and that's a success. So you
Yeah.
have to redefine success sometimes as well.
Yeah, that brings me to that sense of rejection. Like,
Yeah.
you tell her to apply for this job, no matter what happens. Half the time people don't even get back with you, right? You
Yeah.
send a resume out and you hear nothing for like forever.
Hmm.
Like, there's no response. It feels like you're putting yourself out, kind of like to the world, like, date me, love me, like me, and it's
Yeah.
cricket. So I think a lot of times we're really holding back because we know we're going to enter a period of intense rejection. And that
Yes.
becomes the scarcity thought. Like, I'm only going to be rejected. It hurts. Nobody will want me. What do you think
Hmm.
about that?
You have to reframe all of that and change your expectations again and how you define success. So we're not
Hmm.
going to necessarily define success by how many yeses you get on a job application. First, the
Hmm.
success is just having the courage to do that new thing. That's it. And let's celebrate that. I think that you have to really stop looking at it as rejection, because that's a choice. When we look at it that way, that's a limiting belief that we have, and we're choosing to view it that way. I could choose to view it as rejection every time someone doesn't sign up for my program, but I had to learn along the way that that's not rejection. It's simply just not the right match. That's it. So we
Hmm.
really have to dig deep and ask ourselves, why am I viewing this as rejection? Why am I viewing this as a bad thing? Where did that come from? I can let go of that. I can just embrace this as a process because it is a process and it always will be. So I really just kind of work with people to empower them to have a completely different mindset and define success in a different way that actually sets them up to feel good about the process rather than feel bad. So
Yeah.
that's really just where you have to start.
What about timelines? Like, do you ever
Mhm.
say, give yourself a year, give yourself 5 years? Or how do you, because sometimes time can be the thing. Like, I've been working at this for 15 years, Lorraine. By now, I should have changed. By now, I should have this company or I should have this new career. Or the
Mhm.
opposite of that, I want it tomorrow. And
Mhm.
I have not built anything toward this.
Yes.
How do you handle
Yeah.
those extremes?
I think depending on the person, sometimes it makes sense to some people might be motivated by a time frame, some people might be demotivated by that.
Mhm.
Everybody is a little bit different. But I think if they are in a hurry, we have to stop and ask yourself, why do you need it in this certain time frame? What's that going to change? What's going to be different? What does it matter if you achieve this in 3 months or 3 years? What would motivate you more and how would you define that success? It's really up to them to decide that. But I think you do have to be careful because we can get into that trap of, well, I have to do this by this time. And if I don't, well, then I didn't succeed. So sometimes some people work well with that and they're motivated by that, but some people aren't. So I don't always recommend that people put a time frame on it. I think the most important thing is that you're just making progress and that you're just taking action and
Mhm.
moving, even if in a very small way, towards that goal. That is really all that matters because the more action you take, the more that breeds more confidence and more success. It's incremental. So I think that the most important thing is just that you're moving the needle forward, and you're in it for the long run, right? For our careers, I mean, we really are. So you have to take the long view and go, as long as this is advancing me towards what I want, why do I have to be so hard on myself? Why do I have to achieve it by a certain time? It may end up backfiring, and then demotivating you. And you use that as an excuse. Well, I don't have enough time. Well, let's eliminate the time. Let's just make progress towards it. And that's the success. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So how about I'm going to throw another one at you if you
Yeah.
mind. It's just like these little softball pitches, one after
Sure.
another. But they're all things that I've heard and I know you hear them every single
Yeah.
day. What about the person who wants to move to a higher level, like get a promotion or just somehow stretch into something bigger, but they're saying to themselves, other people are more skilled. I don't have this degree or enough years experience. It just feels like too big for them. So instead, they just kind of putter around at the same level forever.
hmm I think a lot of that comes down to fear and imposter syndrome. I did a whole show about imposter syndrome on my podcast because so many people deal with it. And I think a big source of that comes from comparing yourself to other people. I
Mhm.
always caution people about comparing yourself to other people because it is never an accurate comparison, ever. Even if it looks like it, even if it looks like, oh, this person is doing this, so I should be achieving this too. You have no idea what that other person's path was. You have no idea what they went through. All you see is the end product, and you think you're comparing two things. So people have to stop comparing themselves to other people. You are on your own journey, your own path, and what other people do really it really doesn't matter. You're comparing apples to oranges here. So that's the first thing is ask yourself, am I arbitrarily comparing myself to other people or am I focused on myself and my goals and my path?
Mhm.
And when you eliminate that, you eliminate a lot of self judgment and you empower yourself to move forward anyway, to try for that promotion, even if you don't get it. Maybe there's something you can learn about yourself in the process of getting it, even if you didn't get the job. Just going through that interview process can give you confidence or feedback about yourself. There's so many other things to be gained from all of that, that I think that a lot of that imposter syndrome comes from comparing ourselves to other people. And I've done it. I know I've compared when I
Oh,
first started, I compared myself to so many other coaches out there. And
I
it's
can
one thing to
imagine.
be compare, but it's another thing to be inspired. I
Yeah.
tell people I want you to be inspired by other people, but I don't want you to compare yourself. And there's a big difference between those two things, but the water gets muddied a little bit there. So
Yeah, I'm imagining everybody, obviously on Facebook, we all are comparing our lives to everybody else's lives.
yes.
But I think in your realm, it's more like, is your LinkedIn page better than my LinkedIn? Do you know more people
Right.
than I know?
Yes. Yes.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
There's a lot of ways that, I mean, a job search opens up the door to vulnerability. It is. It's a
Yeah.
process that requires you to be vulnerable and put yourself out there and risk being judged. And I think you have to really change your expectations that it's not about being judged. It's just about offering up your services. You have these skills, you have these talents, you're offering it to the world, to the probably one job that's going to take it. And it's okay if everyone else says no. You only need one job. So I tell people, don't worry about rejection. It's just not the right job. You only want one of them. So you don't
Right.
need them all to say yes. So don't worry about the ones that don't. And just focus your vision on the one that will. And I think that just kind of helps people just relax and take the pressure off, because I think we put too much pressure on ourselves when we're going through that process. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, since we're kind of touching on worth, right? Inner
Ah,
worth or self-worth or imposter syndrome, whatever you call it, what about the actual money? What
yes.
am I worth? What am I worth out there in the world?
Oh, that
How do
opens up a
you,
lot of vulnerability
oh,
right there.
yeah.
That's a big one. And it's men and women. I will tell you both have a hard time asking for that value, because I think that we're taught
Mhm.
a lot of times that we shouldn't ask for more. There's a big stigma around money. There's a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
limited lack thinking around that. And so it really shows up in this situation in the
Hmm.
job search. So you really have to kind of go through the coaching process and find out, what are your skills? What is your value? And that's what we focus on, is what are your accomplishments? You have to own them. I'm so shocked at how many people don't feel worthy of their own accomplishments. And they're facts. They're things that are true. The things that have happened. We're not making things up. You did these things. But again, sometimes it takes somebody else impartial to kind of hold a mirror up and go, look at what you've done. To me, this is amazing. To you, it's ordinary. We think our accomplishments are so ordinary. And we forget that to other people who can't do that, they're special. And so we diminish our own value. So I think it's really important to get to the heart of that and ask them, I mean, why do you not feel confident? Why do you not feel valuable? Why are you not worth asking this? And again, it's just that fear of rejection. They know, I think a lot of people know deep down that they're worth it, but they're afraid of getting rejected. And maybe that will validate the feeling that they didn't deserve it. And so they just want to stay away from that possibility and don't put themselves into that situation. So again, it just comes down to really asking yourself questions about, what do you believe about yourself? Is that belief serving you? Is that belief advancing you towards your goals? Or is it keeping you safe and keeping you small? It's going to do one of the two things for sure.
Mhm.
So I think the work that we do in the coaching sets the stage for the money question, because we're doing all this introspection and confidence building throughout the whole program. And usually the money question comes at the end when they're ready to get a job. So hopefully at that point, we've brought them to a point where they have a little bit more self-confidence, and I can walk them through, here's what I want you to say. I give them specific dialogue that takes the pressure off, so they feel equipped for that conversation. But really, you got to feel equipped deep down on below the
Yeah.
surface,
Yeah.
certainly. Yeah.
Yeah. That salary negotiation is probably the one of the hardest things that
Yeah.
I've seen people go through, particularly women, a feeling
Yeah.
of, if I ask for more, they're going to just take the whole offer away. I mean, it gets really
And that
crazy.
doesn't happen. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like,
They're
well, when
afraid
was
it
the
will.
last time you saw that happen? Well, they won't
Doesn't
like me,
happen.
or they'll think I'm too greedy, or they'll think I'm.
Yes.
And I'm like, wait a second, this is a partnership you're
Yes.
entering.
Yes.
Would you do that with an actual partner? Would you say, "Oh, I don't need
Right.
any of my needs met. I'll take
No,
whatever
thanks.
you
Just
give
yours.
me,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
yours." Yeah.
Yes. Sometimes if you put it in another context like that, like a relationship, they hear
Uh-huh.
how ridiculous it sounds. And they would never
Yeah.
do it in another area of their life. But they're doing it to themselves in this relationship. Yes. So a lot of times, one of my favorite questions to ask is, what's the worst that's going to happen? Hit me with it. What's your biggest fear? If you were to ask for $10,000 more, what are you afraid is going to happen? And we work through that scenario so that they feel prepared for that.
Mhm.
Because the worst thing that's going to happen is they feel like, oh, I'm going to get the offer rescinded, or I'm going to start off on an uncomfortable note with them. But then I have to remind them, if that's the case, do you want to work for them? Do you want to work for
Yeah.
that company? That companies expect you to negotiate, and people don't know this. So I hope that my work as a coach will help them to see what they're asking for is normal. It's very commonplace. Most employers expect you to negotiate once you get an offer. I want to normalize it for people. It's
Mhm.
not some bizarre or greedy thing. It's very, very normal. They just need the confidence and the tools to be able to do it. But yeah, that's a tough one. Women especially, but I've seen it with men and women. A lot of people
Mhm.
just makes them uncomfortable. So that goes
Yeah.
back to a lot of the work that you do with people in that money lack thinking. That goes back to our childhood. It goes
Yeah.
way back. Yeah,
Yeah.
it does.
Mm.
That's why career coaching is life coaching.
Yeah,
It's the whole thing. They
I
come for the career coaching, but then they get the life coaching in there too.
it just they come together. Yeah,
Yes.
I was thinking how when you describe the moment of negotiation, I'm like, that is a huge opportunity for personal growth, right there in that moment. You're standing
Yes.
your feet to the fire, you're saying, I am worth this. Oh my God, I hope I'm worth this, but at least I'm gonna act like I'm worth it so that I can experience that. That's huge. I mean, that's a big
Yeah.
moment of claiming value, worth, inner power,
Mhm.
desirability, like all of these things kind of
Yep.
grow in you if you bring
Yeah.
yourself to that point.
Absolutely. And it's tough. The coaching is, it really asks people to ask hard questions of themselves. And I think a good coach should empower people to answer these questions about themselves. It's never surface level. They always come for the resume and the LinkedIn, and they walk away with so much more confidence
Yeah.
and insights about themselves. I really have to say, the biggest thing that clients say they get from this process is confidence. That is the biggest thing I hear over and over. A lot of people say, wow, I feel so much better even just having these conversations. I feel more excited. Some people actually like the job search. I'm like, oh, good. Maybe we can actually make this enjoyable, because it
Hmm.
can be enjoyable if you let go of those lack thoughts that have been holding you back. And that's what we do when they enter this relationship. They let
Yeah.
go of them.
I always tell people when you walk in, because I've worked in corporate, I've had my own companies. I can tell when somebody walks in and they're blooming with a sense of confidence and security. And I always say their energy precedes them. Like
Hmm.
their green light of, you want me, you should take me, I'm a great fit. Versus the other feeling, which is, I hope you like me. I don't even really want this job, but I'm desperate. And I hope I'm good enough. I hope you'll still say yes anyway, which is all red light energy. It really doesn't hardly matter what's on the resume at that point.
Right. No,
It's
it
a
doesn't, because they can
the
feel your energy. Yes.
it's so much. Yeah, and you
Yes.
look at other people and you're like, how come they always get raises? How come they always get promotions? How come they always get? I would say, gosh, it's an energy thing more than
Yes.
even a skill thing. It
It
really, really
it
is.
is. It's the
Hmm.
presence. It's how you carry yourself, and you can have a confidence that doesn't have cockiness. It's not that. It's
Yes.
just it's
Hmm.
authentic. That's the word I
Yes.
use the most with clients. There's an
Hmm.
authentic confidence that comes from knowing that you are valuable,
Yeah.
and simply going in and having a relaxed conversation with the employer to see if it's a match. And if it's not, it was a great experience, and you walk away still feeling as good about yourself because you have adjusted your expectations. It's not about getting that one job, it's about getting the right job. That's
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
I know you in your work, you focus on that a lot. Don't get too specific on the outcome. Focus on the feeling. How do you
Hmm.
want this new job to make you feel?
Right.
What are, forget the company, forget the job title. What are just the things that you want to experience and be doing and feeling? Let's focus on that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, Lorraine, gosh, we haven't even touched on entrepreneurs, and I know you work with them too. I mean, there's only so much you can fit into half an
I
hour,
know.
but you do go on all about this in your podcast,
Yeah.
Career Uprising. So everybody
Yes.
go listen to Lorraine's podcast, okay? Career Uprising, look for it. And you
Yes.
also have a great website, of course, careeruprising.com of the same name. And you have something for everybody who are thinking right now, I want this confidence. I want to do these baby steps. Oh my God, if I could make my job search feel 1,000% better, how? You've got something for them. You want to
I
describe
do.
it?
Yeah. I've developed a video training that is absolutely free for anyone who wants to claim that gift. But what it will do is walk you through at a high level the 3 steps that you need to change careers at any age. It's really going to help you just know, how do I get started? Where do I begin? Because the process is really overwhelming for a lot of people. So I lay out those 3 steps, and I think that you'll learn a lot, and it's applicable to anybody. I don't care if you're 50 or 60 years old, however old you are, this
Mhm.
same process will help you get started and make that career change. So they can get that through, the link through this event. But yeah, it's
Mhm.
it's called How to Change Careers at Any Age. Free video.
Beautiful. I sometimes think about that. If you're changing a career at 50 or 60, in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, that means I'm probably going to live another 30 years at that
Yeah.
point. That's like an entire lifetime of career. So if you're not thinking about that second or third career, you're sort of truncating your life. You're clipping it
Yeah.
off at an earlier
Yeah.
age. And I think we
Absolutely.
forget that with the whole retirement thing. Most happy people in retirement, I know, they have something.
They're
They've
active.
got they're
Yeah. They're
active. Their
active.
career is world travel or whatever, but
Hmm.
there's
Hmm.
something. They're
Yeah.
writing or so I always keep that in mind. Like, yeah, it's never too late. It's never too late. All right.
Absolutely. I agree.
Lorraine, thank you so much. It's been brilliant. I feel motivated. I don't want to switch careers yet, except maybe get my little novel out there into the world,
Yes,
put that
yes,
little
yes,
baby out. But I know a lot of people listening are really feeling like, oh gosh, now I need to do this. And it's about
yes,
time. And I'm overdue for it. So thank you
yes.
so much for
You're
your
welcome.
wisdom
Thanks for
today.
having me. Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Bye, Lorraine.
Bye bye.